let me start and say good afternoon to everybody. My name is Barbara. I have the pleasure of being your host today. And I'm really looking forward to discovering hard and software technologies for a hybrid museum experience together with you. We have invited an incredible lineup of speakers who will share some of their projects and put them up for discussion with us. So welcome to all of our speakers. Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time today. And also, thank you to everyone who is zooming in from apparently all over Europe. It's super nice. So today, it's the second session of the What Matters for Virtual Museums webinar series. The goal of this three-part webinar series is to build a shared basic knowledge among museum professionals concerned with creating hybrid museum experiences. The first session back in February focused on innovative forms of online audience engagement and ways to include co-presence on digital museum platforms. Today, we take the next step and we'll discuss current software and hardware solutions for museum presentation. How can museums address the increasing production of digital artworks and digital events or games? What interfaces have already been produced and how do they work? What direction do they point us into? And lastly, what visions are there involving both the physical space of cultural institutions and their digital possibilities? Our webinar will be structured in two parts and we will have two breaks, so that's nice. The first part will focus on the short presentations of our speakers' projects. And the second part is going to be the more debate-intensive part where we'll go deeper into discussion. We'll split up into breakout sessions and have a closer look at some of the project's crucial parameters. And at the end, then we'll all come back together and discuss our key takeaway and insights. Feel free to use the chat during the entire webinar to share your thoughts and questions. We will have a very short Q&A moment after each presentation, and we'll take all the unanswered comments and thoughts into the breakout sessions as well. So I will try to keep up with the Zoom chat. So with this being said, I think we are set and can start with our very first presentation. By our one and only Livia Nolasco-Rojas, who is the head of the Beyond Matter project at the ZKM, and actually really the reason why we are gathered here today. So thank you very much to the entire Beyond Matter team also. And Livia, I won't say too much. I'll just let you take us away.
Thank you. So thank you very much for the kind introduction, and also thanks a lot for all the team. And it's a great opportunity what we have to convene all of you and bring you together to this virtual space. But let us talk about other virtual spaces, and I will share the screen. So I will talk about one part of our project, the Beyond Matter project. That is an international practice-based research project in which we try to explore, we actually explore how virtual spaces, computer-generated spaces can be used for curatorial and art mediation purposes. And we do it on an international level, and we also do it within and outside of the museum or of the gallery space. And if it happens within the museum or gallery space, we realized that we would need a hardware with which we bring in computer-generated, eventually networked spaces in the museum. But let me get back to the Beyond Matter project for a brief moment with this video, which would look nice, not like this icon. you could see that what we've been doing throughout the Be and Matter project was to deconstruct and then reconstruct virtual reality in certain forms, whether it becomes valid readings or variable relations, for example. And the immaterial display is part of this entire ecosystem, which is, as I mentioned, was conceived and created to bring in virtual exhibition spaces into physical exhibition spaces. And it has a long story. So we started approximately 3 years ago, and in the beginning we didn't really know how we would create such an installation which can lead the visitors in an interactive way into virtual spaces. So we started with somewhat conventional setup, and we thought that we might need to project the different parts of the exhibition spaces, of the virtual exhibition spaces we create into the gallery space. And first of all, we imagined a larger scale installation with multiple projections. Then it changed a little bit to this plan in which there is a controller on a sort of little stage, and in front of the viewer there's a very vertical cutout of the virtual exhibition space. So that was a first draft. And then we worked together with students from the Aalto University and our resident fellow student was Tim Meusgen, who created, among others, this sketch for the display. And as you can see, for him and also for us, it became an important question that unlike the first version, this first version, the suggestion of Tim concentrated also on wheelchair users and let them use this interactive display. Here are some further sketches of the handheld controller, which was rather like a wheel in this case. And I also included predecessor of this idea, which is the Virtual Museum by Jeffrey Shaw. It's a complex installation that was built at the ZKM in 1991, and it was actually very similar in a way it works, because on the screen you could see a virtual space, and with the chair you could move around in this space. So actually the chair became an interface. This was an idea that or a reference that came along the way, and when we invited different designers to suggest designs for the immaterial display, we suggested them to work on this basis. And indeed, one of the design studios with whom we started to work, Commonplace from Amsterdam, came up with such a suggestion. That was the very first draft with a little stool with which you could rotate, or the idea was that you could rotate with that, and your rotation would mirror on the screen, and this is how you could explore the virtual space. Here is another another mock-up of that, another visualization. And then it had a certain evolution, and instead of a little stool, a more complex and also a design object entered the display. This is a Vitra chair, a physics chair, and as you can see, a handheld controller was also added because as we developed the virtual exhibition model, we realized that the sole movement of the chair is not enough for the navigation, since there are additional information layers in the exhibition model that should be also accessed. Therefore, handheld controller, which is basically an air mouse, had to be developed as well. Here you can see another rendering of it from the very beginning, also with the background wall. On the background wall, there are additional elements. These are e-paper displays that display the catalogs of the two exhibitions, which can be seen on the monitor module currently as well. Here are a few technical drawings. As I mentioned, the handheld controller, the chair, the monitor module, the background wall with the e-paper displays, and also another column which is housing an augmented reality addition to the exhibition model. On this slide, I wanted to summarize the connection between the hardware or the interface and the display. I mean the monitor, the exhibition models on the monitor. As you can see in the middle, there is an animation which already shows how to deal with the different parts and the different functions of the chair, plus with the handheld controller. And as I mentioned, an augmented reality part is also added to the Iconoclash exhibition model because to the exhibition at the ZKM, which took place in 2002, an external event was added. It was a sculpture performance, and for 2 weeks in front of the ZKM, Lenin sculpture was dangling from a crane. It was literally the title sculpture dangling from a crane from the two Russian artists, Komar and Melamid. And we evoked, emulated, or revived this performance in the virtual realm and recreated it as an augmented reality, an AR to web application that can be reached via QR code. And this is why this triangle-based column is in front of the ZKM, because this is sort of a physical anchor for this virtual experience. This is how it looked like in front of the Aalto University. And at this point, I would like to mention that the immaterial display in all its various different beta forms and prototypes was already exhibited at different venues, in the Tallinn Art Hall, at various different venues in Helsinki and in Espoo, at the Tirana Art Lab, and currently it is on view at the ZKM, the Center for Art and Media, and from the 17th of May, it will be exhibited throughout the summer until the 2nd of October at the Centre Pompidou in Paris. So here is the very first prototype in Tallinn. As you can see, it's only one screen because COVID came and we couldn't source the displays, the monitors, but the chair was there. Then we realized that the chair is buggy, so the curved display was ready, but the chair couldn't be exhibited. Now you cannot see it, unfortunately, on this photo, but we have the chair. We don't have the monitors again because we have certain hardware problems, but next week they are going to be rebuilt. And so I just mentioned these to let you know that hardware development can be more complicated than I ever anticipated as a curator who is mostly working on exhibition development projects and in scientific context. So hardware development is really something different. So we learned really a lot on from this experiment. But I really hope that in the Centre Pompidou, we will be able to show a final and smoothly working version of this display. So let me just show the imprint of the display. There are a few people among us with whom we work in close collaboration on this. And also, as I mentioned, the Commonplace Studio played a crucial role in the design, and Thomas Schwab as a technical manager, as well as Matthias Heckel, who was responsible for the user interface development. So this would be it about the immaterial display. And I'm not sure if we have a bit more time, but if we do, then I could also show the iconoclash model, which is running on the immaterial display. Now, what we can see on the screen, we already skipped the trailer of the iconoclash model. And what we can see now is the function or the way the entire model functions. Since it was an exhibition that took place at the ZKM, so it was a large-scale exhibition on more than 3,000 square meters with more than 400 exhibits, and it was it had a quite complex scenography. And we posed ourselves the question how to translate this scenography into digital space, and how to engage the visitors with this virtual space, since there is an interface between that. So as we could see in an exhibition space, the interface is the immaterial display, and at home it's obviously the laptop or the desktop computer, and this one is even available on tablets or smartphones. So there's always an interface between the viewer and the virtual exhibition space. So we thought that this is why we need to adapt the virtual exhibition space and create something different from physical architecture. And throughout interviews with the curators and with the architect of the exhibition, we came to the idea that actually what we need to build is a relational space, and we should forget about that container that is the architecture of the ZKM. This is why we eliminated it, and create or constitute a space on the basis of the artworks that were part of the exhibition. And if we click on this, it will take a bit because yeah, well, after a while we will see the exhibition from above. Yes, now we see the exhibition from above, right? Can you see it as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as you can see, as a red dot, you always see yourself within this grid, and around it, all the different exhibition pieces, artworks, and artifacts that are surrounding us. And if I was in a so-called activation zone of an artwork, then it would even move. Currently, it doesn't, but maybe I just fly back, and then we will see how it works. So it is a dynamic system, and actually if no 4 programs are running parallel on my very old iMac, then it's a little bit smoother process.
But that's fine, Olivia. Just if you can wrap it up, it's amazing. I'm so amazed by seeing this. Finally, it's so cool.
Yes, I will wrap it up. Just let us fly back to the exhibition space and see an instance when we get closer to one artwork. And well, this is what you could see previously. If you enter the activation zone of one artwork, then all the others that are thematically similar, that are tagged with the same, or at least some of their keywords are the same, are coming closer to you, and the others are drifting apart. It is a recommender algorithm that is at work here, very similar to retail platforms, online retail platforms. They are also using the same AI, one could say, and this is how this malleable and dynamic space is being constituted and reconstituted again. So the visitor is playing a crucial role in this entire system, and but all the other pieces as well. So yes, unfortunately, it seems that that we cannot fly back so easily. So I will just stop it and leave it there. But I would like to encourage you to try it out, and it's on iconoclash.beyondmatter.eu.
Amazing. Maybe some of our, Sabine, already putting the link in the chat. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Livia. That's so nice to finally have an insight into, you know, this project that has been with you for the past, I think, 4 years or 3 years. Incredible. So you're really revolutionizing the art historical research into past exhibitions and scenography reconstructions. And I think it would actually be super interesting to go into the philosophical debate of, you know, how adequate or accurate does an historical reconstruction have to be? But I really love that you're exploring new paths and that you're going into this relational space. Super nice. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Brand new. Cool. All right. But with that, we will stick to the immaterial, so to say, and go into the next project, our next presentation, which will take us into the past and into the field of digital heritage preservation. Here to lead us into this topic is Lily Diaz-Commonen. She's a professor of new media at Aalto University and researches the use of information technologies and media for the preservation of tangible and intangible heritage. And now she will talk about social software. So I think it's a very good segue coming away from the immaterial display and going into your project. Lily, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's been a pleasure also to listen, you know, also this overview that Livia just gave about immaterial display. Right, okay, so then let me start with sharing the screen, sharing my slides, and just a moment from the beginning. Can you see them? Yeah.
Yes, perfect.
Okay,
you can click on slideshow.
Yes, I will do that now.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you. So so in my talk, I am going to present the work that I have been doing in another project I've been in the past 3-4 years I've been working partly also with a BMVR project with Livia and the group there, which has been fantastic. And then I was double blessed too that I had another project that also received funding and worked through the 2-3 COVID years that we had. And this is the SPICE project, and the SPICE, the acronym stands for Social Cohesion, Participation and Inclusion through Cultural Engagement. And we have in this project, we had, well, it's coming to an end now at the end of April, 7 countries, Ireland, United Kingdom, Denmark, Finland, Italy, Spain, and Israel. And the objective in this project and how it's very much related, it's uncanny how it's very much related also to what has been going on in BMVR, because the project, it is about developing a software system to support interpretation of heritage. And what could that software system be like? What could it do? And so I will just take you. It's a huge endeavor. Certainly, I cannot show everything in the time we have, but okay. So I give you a little overview, and as you can see in my first slide, I'm mentioning my 2 colleagues that I'm working with. Gautam Vishwanath, who's a doctoral student candidate who has been working with me on this, and then Lena Svinhufvud, who is a curator and head of education at Design Museum Helsinki. So let's see then. In the project itself it's a Horizon 2020 project that it brings together a whole bunch of partners that are primarily looking at this endeavor from a technical perspective. But in this case, our task was to bring in that is Aalto University, and my task was to bring in the humanistic, the artistic, and the heritage perspective, and to do so through qualitative research that we carried on through case studies. And I put the definition of the case study, what it is: an exploration from multiple perspectives of the complexity and uniqueness of a particular project, policy, institution, program, or system in real life. Because immediately when my impression or my experience has been many times that, okay, so case studies, what are we going to do? We're going to have pilots, right? We're going to be testing this thing. And it isn't, yes, we had also pilots, but it was also about really looking at what we were doing from many different perspectives. In the project, we have involved, we have 5 heritage institutions involved, and it's to raise the level of complexity. Is that okay? They are heritage institutions, but each dealing with very different types of collections, areas of study, and also perspectives. We had from Haifa, the Heck Museum, that it's an archaeology museum, primarily concerned with preservation of material culture, study and preservation of material culture from the Middle East. The Museo de Ciencias Naturales in Madrid, which is a natural history museum and very much focused on paleontology. And Galleria d'Arte Moderna in Turin, that is a contemporary art gallery. The Irish Museum of Modern Art in Dublin, that is also another contemporary art museum. And then finally, here in Helsinki, Design Museum Helsinki, that is very much concerned with design artifacts. So, very, very eclectic mix. And then one of the things that we have had to produce, as I will show in a moment, is this: we had to produce what is called a socio-technical map of everything, all the different components in the project. And basically, well, what does that mean? Socio-technical studies is an area, a field that works, it considers human, social, organizational factors in addition to the technical factors. And then how is it that, for example, we're developing a very complex new system? How is it that we develop it, we implement it also so that it works, quote unquote, for the good of society and so on. And then considering the human factors and the social and organizational factors, and particularly in the light of ethical concerns. Oops, so now what happens? And of the key concepts also related to our work, what is it that we aimed that this project and this software that has been developed would do, and how would it be shown through the case studies? We have first, how to address the participation gap by widening and diversifying voices of minoritized communities in the museum. And in that case, we have, for example, IMMA, that is the Irish Museum of Modern Art in Dublin. They have worked with many different kinds of communities that include from children who are in situations of intensive health care, that because they're hospitalized, they cannot, for example, then they wouldn't be able to go to the museum personally. They have also worked with minority groups such as like Black and Irish, and then how is it that they also then bring their own perspective and interpretation of the artifacts in the collection to the museum visit. So there's the idea of closing the physical distance gap for the citizens. So accessibility and inclusion have been a very important component, as has been this notion of co-design, that is working with these communities to develop their own ways of engaging with culture. And we really have tried to go beyond. So it's not simply that, okay, so here we have this group of people to test what we're doing, but rather that they have been a crucial component in the way that we have developed things. And we can actually show that, for example, well, let me, continue, and then I show some at the end. Then the notion of citizen curation, that is possibly the most important factor in the software. So this is like trying to answer the question of, is there a possibility that non-museum professionals could curate their own opinions and viewpoints about a particular exhibition and then share it with others who might either be there on the floor or who might then later in a different later point in time might then read what they have said. And finally, the notion of relevance. Why is this relevant? Well, it's about having different communities, many of whom are marginalized, seeing the relevance of culture to their own lives and concerns. Oops. Why am I not? Okay, here we go. And then the socio-technical system map, I will show now. I will just simply show a little bit about two of the cases, because I don't think we have time that I could show all of them. The first that I will speak about is the one at Museo de Ciencias Naturales in Madrid. In each of these cases, they each had different hardware and software. Okay, the system itself is a generalized thing. And that is something that becomes obvious when you look at the socio-technical map. But it has different components that different case studies utilize for their own purposes. In this case, the idea here, this is a very game-oriented solution that these partners came up with, and it is about engaging the young people in natural science and biodiversity, and the way they do it is they do it through this treasure hunt application. which is, it makes use of the SPICE software, the SPICE system. And in this case, it's instantiated as a mobile app with augmented reality elements to create a gamified museum visit. And then the game experience is it's mediated by both the teacher and the museum educator. The children, in this case, it's targeted towards children in the ages of 11 and 12 years old. First, the partners go and speak with the teachers in the schools, and so that the children are prepared for the museum visitor. Then they come to the museum, and then when they are in the museum, they have the museum educator and guide takes them through the experience. And then here I show you what the socio-technical map of the user experience looks like. And you can see the different components. They are labeled. This looks like, you know, our very familiar subway route map. And indeed, it was taken from that. The metaphor is taken from that because, you know, this is, I was the one that realized the design. And because it, you know, I found that it's ubiquitous and it seems like everybody understands it. Once you learn how to use this diagram, you know, you can go into any subway in the world and use this as an orientation device. And this being very complicated software system, I figured that this would be, you know, a proper model to use. And there is not one way of designing a socio-technical map. There seems to be many. And you know, so anyway, so here we go through the Museo de Ciencias Naturales, the experience. So we start the user journey, that is a session with the educators at the school. When they come to the museum, they've already been given a login. They first sit around with the group and the museum educator gives them an explanation about the exhibition that they're going to see, and the tablets are handed out. They are working in pairs through the treasure hunt. Once they're like let loose on the gallery floor, this is broken into at least 3 sections. For each of these sections, you have this engagement. That means, you know, you go through this part of the gallery and you locate special items in the gallery using the tablet. So it's, you know, they go through all of them, and with the tablet, it's very interesting to watch because you see how, you know, as they're reading, you can also understand how they're talking amongst themselves and how they're reflecting about what they see. There is also a gamification element that is happening so that the first pairs who actually locate the correct artifact, then they say, okay, I found it. And then, so they're all gathered back again, and then they have to present what they have found to the group. And at that point, the museum educator provides more knowledge and starts linking all the different things that are around them. So that then they even get more information, and then they're once again let loose on the second section of the gallery. And then you see how we have this interpretation reflection loop that is marked on the map. This is because we're like very interested in, like, you know, locating. Well, first of all, we were even wondering, does such a thing exist? Is there an interpretation reflection loop? And we think that there is. And we sort of like have, you know, like pointed that this might be where it's happening, you know, that is actually being supported through all these like different devices. So then they go through at least 3 of these experiences in the gallery floor. And then at the end, they have a tale that it summarizes the experience that it's told by the museum educator. And then they are asked, when they go back to their school, they're asked by the teacher to prepare an essay and then also make a picture of the artifact that they had, of the artifact that they found that they thought, you know, was most meaningful to them. These things, they can then be categorized by the educators, they can be saved, and so on. Now you can notice too that we have these like ethics signposts that are located throughout different points in space These are one of the functions that the socio-technical map has, is to then also signal a flagship. Here, there might be a particular ethical issue, whether it has to do with privacy, whether it has to do with whatever it is that is being explained in the museum, and so on. One of the interesting things in this case is that, okay, of the SPICE software, what they utilize the linked data hub system. I think of the linked data hub as the encyclopedia, where everything is located. So this is—
You have 1 minute to go, Lily, sorry.
Okay, so then I will just— Huh?
Oh,
yeah.
good.
Okay, so then, yeah, so then this is, yeah. So then you can see that, okay, human agents, sense-making tools, and knowledge experts, you know, so then here the human is, you know, active in this system. And then just quickly, I will show the Helsinki case. This is some pictures of it. And then the Helsinki case, the pop-up VR museum, that is a different application that makes use of virtual reality. Here we do not have the human agent as interactor. It's a very different system. And if you would allow me, I could show the video now. It's 2 minutes and you can see what the pop-up VR museum looks like. Yeah.
Okay, then we'll finish with the 2-minute video, yes.
Okay, let's do that. Thanks a lot. And sorry, I mean, there is like so much, and I'm not even, you know.
I know,
you know,
it's so interesting.
Sorry.
And we also have more interest about the ethical questions in the chat. So we will take this definitely into the breakout session discussion.
Yes,
yeah.
Okay, so then let's just take a peek at the pop-up VR museum. And then, can you hear it?
Yes, beautifully,
Great.
Thanks.
This is, we're gathering some quantitative data as well. This is, we have digitized, we have made a special digital collection from the museum's design collection. And you can contribute your own story to this, and you can listen to other people's stories as well. That is a chair, by the way. You can see the linked data hub on the corner. The information is coming through there.
Uskon, että tämän päivän tekniikoilla tehden, niin useista näistäkin niin pystytään kehittämään vielä pitkälti aikaan sopivia ja kestäviä tuotteita, ja toivon, että niitä tullaan jatkossakin näkemään, joskin samalla sitten uusi polvi ammentaa näistä sitä perustaa, mikä niistä on mahtavasti saatavilla.
The stories are in Finnish, Swedish, and English, and then you can also type your own if you want to enter a story. One.
Lily, can you share the link to the VR video into the chat afterwards? Or into the project?
Yes, I can share a link to it. Yeah, thanks.
Amazing. Yeah, cool.
So, okay, so stop sharing, and this is it. Sorry,
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, thanks so much. I mean, that's what we're here for. Super interesting to get all these insights. just very quickly, I mean, we'll overstretch a little bit, but Anja Gebauer asks if there is a link between the two examples, the one in Madrid and the one in Helsinki, or is it just the fact that they're in the same project?
No, they're using the same system. This is what the map is. The map is to show you what parts of the system are being used in which of the cases. So we built a system that makes use of semantic technologies and then different semantic technologies, and then you can use it in different ways.
All right. Well, thank you so much, dear Lily. We'll take the ethical questions into the breakout sessions afterwards. And maybe also the breakout sessions might offer some more time to have a look at the social technical system map. So thanks so much, dear Lily. All right, on to the next, our third example. We've now been looking at examples that deal a lot with like also the past or reconstructions. And now we are leaping into the future. Our next stop is the Ars Electronica Future Lab, a laboratory and atelier for future systems. And here to present that project is Roland Haring. He's the technical director of the Ars Electronica Future Lab, and he has the fascinating research focus on co-immersive spaces. And I can't hear to hear more about that. So Roland, go ahead. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Barbara. Hello. I hope the presentation is working. I want to take a bit more general approach in talking about hard and software technologies for a hybrid museum experience by giving you some insights about the experience that we have with the Deep Space 8K as a very important media space here at the Ars Electronica. This is the Ars Electronica Center. It's located in Linz, in Austria, and the arrow indicates where I'm sitting at the moment, but here in the larger part of the building, there's the important part that I would like to refer to today. Just as a short sum up, the Ars Electronica is an institution which has grown a lot over the last decades. Started in 1979 as a festival for media art, but meanwhile, also since 1996, there is the Ars Electronica Center as a permanent space, basically to show contents which are related to this domain of art, society, technology. And what's a bit unique about it is that Ars Electronica is has a museum, but it doesn't have a collection. So what we have in our archives is basically all the metadata about the entries for the festival and the pre-Ars Electronica, but not really actual artworks. So that's why right from the beginning, when we opened the Ars Electronica Center, I mean, a lot of the content is curated for sure, but to have something like a permanent collection, it was needed to build something like a hybrid space, which is virtual, which is real, where people can go and basically experience all kinds of immersive media. And this is then one of these questions that we had been following right from the beginning is what kinds of technology can you use basically for creating these immersive spaces for people to engage. And one thing which comes to your mind for sure is this head-mounted displays, as you see it here, but this has a lot of shortcomings. I mean, there were systems available in the 90s already. They are still valid, but probably more for single user scenarios and not for situations as you have in a museum where you have a social experience, where you have people gathering as a group, sharing, being in communication. And this was basically then always something where we tried to find other forms of how to utilize immersive media. What's quite interesting is when you look back into the histories of head-mounted displays, it's connected to Ivan Sutherland, who has built them, but actually he did not build them in order to build glasses that you wear. His vision was totally different. His vision was to build the ultimate display. And this is something like a conceptual description that you have here from the mid-60s. And it says that this is a space totally controlled by the computer and where information becomes tangible matter. And even like with the comparison that when you shoot in this space, just the information bullet, then this bullet is deadly when it hits you. And this reminds us of something. And there is a clear reference in popular science fiction movies with the holodeck of Star Wars. So this is all conceptually connected. But what was for us still interesting is, well, I mean, this would be something like the ideal hybrid media space for a museum like ours, basically to recreate the environments on the fly that you need when you present them. But this was more or less the starting point. And in the mid-90s, when we started, it looked something like this. So this is this cave infrastructure. You have the projection on the outside of the cube. People stand in the center. It is immersive, but it is totally limited, again, to only like 1 to 3 people. And this was more or less the starting point with our journey. And as you see here, this is now also some decades already, where we started then with the Deep Space in 2009 as an ongoing project. And when you look now on systems, okay, how can you scale this up from the cave and go to much larger spaces? There are many approaches on how you can do it. And there are many trials that had been done from these L-shaped dome projections that you probably know to 360 projections, so all kinds of things. What we did for the Deep Space, we chose this L-shaped projection format. And this was something like this design principles that we had in mind, or what we wanted to achieve in this space, to make it, and also to make it really experience for 80, 100 people at the same time. So quite a difference to this previous system. And here it's just a short video. It shows how this space looks. And what we have here is a space which uses projection on 2 surfaces, which are 16 by 9 meters each, and which has different forms of tracking technologies, interaction, but also different ways of how to project the content. So also it's possible to do this in 3D stereo. And but basically there are 3 factors which we identified as the main, how to say, important viewing points. And one is for sure the technical infrastructure. Other thing is the content. What are you showing in the space? But then the third very important part is how are you doing the actual presentation in this space, and how do people immerse in this space to get engaging experiences? And to keep this short, because time is moving on, these presentations in our space, they are always live. So whenever you visit the Deep Space, there is someone who is going there with you. You are a group in this space. You have a joint experience, a social experience, but there is someone who is guiding you and who is interacting with you, sometimes on behalf of you, but is exploring the space with you together. Nevertheless, there are different sensing technologies which allow also people to just step into the projection, be represented, and be sensed. All this comes down basically to a very inclusive space, easily accessible for everyone. So basically what you need to do is you need to go inside and then you are there. There's no additional hardware required, nothing else that you need to know as pre-existing knowledge, or you don't need to learn something. Everything you need to know, you will learn it basically during the experience in the space. And talking about the content, I mean, this is really like a huge collection that has been built up there now over the years. And I think meanwhile in the content management system, we have more than 1,000 different presentations. So for sure, a lot of content is coming each year from the Ars Electronica Festival in the category of media art, but there's also a big focus on cultural heritage, scientific visualizations, space exploration, but for sure also collaborative and interactive applications. So just want to show briefly what kind of media formats we use in this space. There is something like a content management system, which also has different players integrated, which basically show the content then whenever it's loaded by the presenters. So they are doing this live. There is no pre-scripted show. They have a mobile phone, and with this mobile phone, they can trigger whatever presentation they want to show to the people. And I mean, video, image, 3D, 2D, classic format, very important still in the space, but then also gigapixel images. So these are images of extreme high resolution where you can interactively zoom into the image and explore it together with the people by just focusing on specific points of interest in the image. So also interactively controlling this. Point cloud models are very important, especially in cultural heritage. But this can also be done with other 3D models, which can be loaded and explored in this space. Time-lapse video has been a super huge, important category also of media art up to a few years ago, especially when 8K filming was not so common. But was somehow developed the community on its own. But probably the most important thing is interactive applications. So this is something that for sure you can develop in the space. And also, yeah, is however needed. This is what we refer to as this custom application development. To make this more understandable and easy, especially people that are interested, there is a GitHub repo where we have also template projects. So might be interesting for those that really want to get a deeper dive into how you build applications in a space like that. What you see here is the authoring tools or content engines, bit ordered by the importance or relevance that we see at the moment. So most of the work at the moment, especially when you want to use all features that the space has, is done with the Unreal Engine, but other engines and tools also very commonly used in this environment. And just for, I don't know how much time I have left. I think it's only probably
You're fine, Roland, like 4 minutes.
I'm trying to rush
through.
Talking about the technical infrastructure, and what we are doing is we are using basically cinema projectors, which are also capable of 3D projection, and we are using 8 of them. And 4 of them are projecting on the wall and 4 on the floor using mirrors. And the people move around in the space. There is also a gallery for optional use to even extend the capacity of the space. And people can utilize, depending on the content, these active 3D glasses, which create this illusion of a perspective projection. When you put them on, they're always like covering one eye after the other, which is synchronized with the projection. And then you see basically left and right. And but also contains an audio system and so on. Here is bit of a sum up of the main technical components. So probably then afterwards, when you review the recording, you can have a look. But what's important here is that there are basically 2 ways how you get content on the screen. One is this 8K signal path, which is like full resolution, and the other one is 4K. The 8K renders with 2 workstations, one for the wall and the other one for the floor. This is needed due to performance implications. So you could not render everything like from just one machine. Still not possible, unfortunately. unfortunately. But for easier content development, we have also like a lower resolution workstation, which has half the resolution. And this gets then upscaled by the projectors to full resolution. But this allows you really to work with one machine where you have both wall and floor basically as two extended desktops, and where you quite easily can just open a full screen window and start rendering on your screen, and whatever you render on your screen is then automatically transferred to the projectors. So this is very easygoing. This is also the way how we utilize processing, for example, because this would not be working on this high resolution system, or not easily, let's put it like that. But still, I mean, that there is a lot of ongoing R&D challenges, ongoing, just edit here a few. I mean, that there is a content management system which does all the process management. You can press play and pause and whatever you want to see on your smartphone, and then this gets instantly shown. But we're still working on ways how to make this even more seamless, so that there is not something like this transition screen in between, but that you can really go from one content to another. This would be for sure huge to just not break the immersion when you make these transitions in between the different projects. And other thing is for sure, I mean, display technology, going to 6P laser projection or even 3D LED walls and stuff like that is always something which is something of importance. But currently for us, of much higher relevance are different approaches to natural user interfaces, like full body tracking without having additional markers or devices, gesture, face recognition, speech interfaces. So to make the interaction in the space even more natural for the people. And also considering this then with differencing in multi-user interaction scenarios. So what we try to do here is to build something like the foundation for running a museum with a hybrid media space. And this is what we are actually doing since 2009 with a lot, I think, of positive learnings, and just due to the fact that it's still being updated each year with new content shows that I think this is still a very valid approach. Okay, but this was basically the
amazing
last slide.
Perfect. Thanks so much, dear Roland. And really also, I loved how you put some media archaeology in there with the really beginning of head-mounted displays, took us to the holodeck, and then really deep, knee-deep into the deep space. So thanks so much. Actually, I'm wondering about one thing. How many people do you have running this space? Like, how many people are working on that at the moment? Because it looks huge.
Yeah, well, the thing is that you have one person that you need to do the daily presentations. So this, due to the fact that we do live presentations, there need to be someone who takes care of the people. But this person can do basically everything on her own or on his own. So there is not a second technician needed who's sitting in the background and pressing some secret buttons. So you're really controlling everything with your smartphone, what you do in the space. But there are for sure technicians around in case something goes wrong, so that you have someone. But the whole content development is something which we really try to keep as broad as possible. So really inviting people that contribute to the Ars Electronica each year, and which have interesting immersive projects to ask them if they want to show it in this space. And then we're mostly focusing also on adaptation of existing work. And so there is not one content development team. We really we try to keep it as diverse as possible.
Amazing, cool. And Patrick from Fabrik asks how many people can assist, so how many people fit in the space inside?
yeah, it depends on what you do. For these regular daily presentations, it's around 80. But when you do something like a performance, because the thing is, you still want that people can move in the space. And if you overcrowd it, then at a certain point, people tend to stand or sit. And this is something that you can do. Then you can have 100, 120 in there. But this is something which is done for performances for sure. And also during the festival, just to get people in there. But regular, I would say 80, 50 to 80, something like that is a good number.
Wow, okay. Well, thank you so much, dear Roland. We're gonna start into the second half of the presentations. We had just left it off in the future, and that's actually where we'll stay, because we are now headed to the Futurium Lab with David Weigand. David is Head of Education and Participation at the Futurium in Berlin, where the basement is a buzzing Fab Lab area, inviting you to develop your own prototypes, use 3D printers, experiment, test, and invent. And I visited once, I loved it, so I'm really happy to go back there now in form of a presentation. Thank you so much, David. Go ahead.
Just to give you like a context, what is Futurium, because we just opened 2019 and then was Corona, and I guess most of you hadn't the possibility to come by and visit us. We are a place where we try to explore different futures, and our main goal is really to empower people to shape the future. So we are not a prognostic institute of somehow, but we are more like a participatory space where we invite people from science, from education, from everyday life to talk about the future and find solutions for the big challenges we face right now. We have three parts: an exhibition, a forum, and a lab. That's the exhibit, just to give you an impression. That's the forum where all the talking and discussion is happening, and that's the lab, the place to explore new ways and co-create. And the lab is also the part where I'm the head of. It's part of my department. Yeah, we are already a hybrid museum. So if you go to the exhibit, you get like this little bracelets, armbands kind of thing. And you have different stations where you can get like your RFID chip. And then afterwards, you have the possibility to go online and revisit the Futurium. So we already have this hybrid thing that we have part of our content online on Futurium.de, which is our website, and part of that in the Futurium itself. Beyond that, and that's really the part of the lab, we try to experiment with new formats of hybrid storytelling and hybrid museum kind of things. And for that, I want to give you some examples or strategies that you can use in your daily practice. But before that, just a little bit about the mindset, because this is something that falls short sometimes. We're doing all these things to make the people to think about certain topics, to learn something. And we don't do digital things for itself. It always has a purpose. And that's the mindset of the lab. So purpose number one is we try to put people in a creative process to that they can engage in research, in putting out visions and ideas to gain inspiration and brainstorm together and really go into a design kind of mode. So first goal of us in the lab is that. Second thing is this pyramid that you need when you're thinking about the future, if you're thinking in systems. And if you design something or if you try to change the world, you always have to think about three things: about yourself, what is important for you, what is important for myself. But this could be rather selfish. For example, I want to have like a jet set lifestyle with big cars and planes and stuff like that. This would then contradict to the second layer, which is society. So we have to think about what is good for us as a society, what is the benefit for other people. And then on the bottom layer, there's the system Earth. And we really have to think about planetary boundaries and about the needs of other creatures, animals, plants, stuff like that, our environment. So thinking systems, second goal. Third goal is kind of a thing about the futures, about future science. So we don't try to give people like a vision in a science fiction movie. We try to show people that the future is open and that there are many, many possibilities how the future could be looking like. And if you look like in the realm of 30, 40, 100 years into the future, you can't do prognostics. You're always in the realm of speculation or educated guesses. And so for us, the focus is on in what kind of future do we want to live? So we're speaking about preferable futures and not about prognosticable futures. Yeah, and the last thing we want to get across is this thinking in global goals. There are these SDGs, they are combined by the United Nations, and these are like the common goals of mankind, what we want to do in the next 20 years. And I think that's also very important to get that across, that there should be common goals of us humans. And if we're doing future projects or exhibitions or something, workshops, they should be concerning these things here. Okay, so much to the mindset. Let's start with digital strategies. And I saw that this morning in the underground station, they put that up, and I found that quite funny because it says, truly said, I can shape the future without VR. And that's so true. And this is kind of the motto for the presentation. I changed some slides to really come up with that, because I think the really interesting formats are in the in-betweens. And I don't want to get my digital strategy dictated by a company like Meta. And I had the feeling in the last year that this is not always the case if you're working in the cultural sector. So I brought to you like some strategies we use in the Futurium Lab, and many of them have to do with open source culture, because I think open source technology is one of the key factors and one space we as cultural institutions have to learn, and we have to experiment and to embrace that. So let me show some projects, and starting with the Future Mobility Simulator. And that's a project we did with Imaginary, which is a Berlin-based institution that tries to make science communication fun, so to say. And they are hardwired into the open source community. So in this exhibit, we try to combine open hardware with existing open source projects, gamification, and also doing that in an iterative design process. So this exhibit is not finished. It's always like in a beta stadium, and we continuing improving the exhibit in workshops, in co-creation processes, stuff like that. So that for the context. And that's the wrong slide. Just don't care. So that's the Future Mobility Simulator. And you see, you have like this little Lego blocks that you can arrange. And the origin of the exhibit is really the MIT Media Lab, because they did a project a couple of years ago where they did workshops with citizens to make city planning. And we took this concept with prototyping with Lego blocks and gamified it. And you see, you have like little blocks. They're standing for streets, for parks, for industry areas, and then you can combine them to build like your own city. And under this playing table is a camera that then scan the Lego blocks, and the underside works like a QR code, so to say. So you get like a virtual image of the city. And so we can then use projection mapping to put a real mobility simulation, a real city simulation inside of this Lego arrangement. So you play Lego with augmented reality on top of that, with a real agent-based modeling on top. And fancy stuff like that is just possible if you use open source projects and all the ideas and the technology people before you used. And of course, the Future Mobility Simulator in itself is also open source. And we that's the interesting thing. We have like the first copy of that opening this week in Dresden. So the Verkehrsmuseum in Dresden took our Future Mobility Simulator and built like their own version. And that's really the beauty of open source, that you can share and that you're creating a commodity other can use. Otherwise, this would be just a fancy, expensive project exclusive for Berlin, and we don't want to do stuff like that. Next project, sensor bikes, which we did with SenseBox, a little sensing station based in Münster. And this is a citizen science project. So citizen science means that people, everyday people, support science, for example, by collecting data. Bird watching would be like a prominent example. And for the SenseBike project, we also built like little sensor stations on an open hardware basis. And they were built by visitors of Futurium. 30 of them built like a little box and learned how this thing is working, what kind of sensors are inside, put them on their bikes and installed them. And the idea is that these boxes can measure something like the air quality, the vibrations on the ground, the speed of the bike, all that stuff. And if you collecting all this data in the city, you really can create a map of Berlin. And you can see, for example, where you have like issues. For example, here you can see where get the cars too close to the bikes, or where is the street very rumply, and where do people brake like a lot. And this data we then visualize in the Futurium lab, so that our visitors can go into in the Berlin map and see where are like the hotspots in terms of mobility. And later on, other people can use the data. It's open data, so it's available for everybody. And for example, politicians can use that to start like a participatory process, or scientists or students who are interested can use that. And that's the beauty of open data, that with that we providing something that is then can then be used by the bigger community. Yeah, next project, something totally different. This is an art project by Alexander Peter Hansen. And there we're using a strategy that it's not so much in the digital realm. It's more from the practice of future science, and it's called speculative design. But, and you will see that in a second, it's important if you're thinking about emerging technologies and how to use them. And just to give you a background, speculative design is actually invented by these two people, Anthony Dune and Fiona Raby. They were professors at the Royal College of Arts at that time, and they wrote this wonderful book. If you haven't read it, it's a blast. It changed my life. It should change yours. And they basically say with speculative design, you can explore the potential consequences of future scientific, societal, or technological innovations. And they really try to combine them in speculations and little foresights to to focus on certain developments. And this is what this booth does. It's actually the first product of a fake company the artist did, Alexander, and it's a company called Smile to Vote. And they're basically saying, hey, the voting system is broken and we have like future technology for you. And we use advanced artificial intelligence so that people don't have to vote by themselves, but the computer can do that for them. And the computer is much better than the people in analyzing that. So the experience is that you go into the booth, then you will be scanned by the camera, and then the system starts to analyze your facial features, and then votes for you. And behind that is really a real artificial intelligence that was trained with the faces of the German Bundestagsabgeordneten, like the German representatives. And the really scary thing is that this technology is really in use right now. For example, for safety on airports or stuff like that. And that's the reason for this exhibit, to show what happens if we use emerging technology in the wrong way. In this case, how we can use AI to basically end democracy as we know it, and to put the human factor out of the loop when it comes to decision making, which is like a dystopia in itself. And that's the reason I put this as an example inside. If we're dealing with emerging technologies, we should try to find spot on artistic expressions to show people the consequences, so that they know that technology is always a problematic thing in itself. Okay. Next thing, cloud fill. This is about technology assessment. And that's also very important in digital technology and also in the lab and future space, because we are confronted with new technology. And I think our role, especially as a lab, is to experiment with technologies, explore their potential and their risk, and really teach people how to use them to make the world a better place. And that's also the motivation behind this project we did with certain measures. And it deals with circular economy and the problem of the use of waste in the building sector. The building sector makes around about 30% of all the waste in Europe. It's huge. And right now we can't recycle waste. So we did like a real world experiment. So we turned down like an old building, scanned all the material, and then by computer magic, used this old material to combine it to a new building. And this shows you need cutting edge digital technology to build like a real world thing. And the result the visitor sees in the end is not some fancy VR application. It's a real thing that was just possible with technology. And it's not just about artistic expression. It's also about the future and the environment, and giving like a vision for a circular future where we can reuse all the materials that we having and are really in a circular economy. So just some nice pictures of the exhibit again. Next example, data correlations. I think the interesting thing about here is about also technology assessment and open data. This is an exhibit about the future of democracy. And as you probably know from the social media world, Twitter, Facebook, and co, they're kind of broken because they tend to put us in little bubbles where we can't discuss anymore as a society. So the problem is that we are getting more divided by the technology than more, then are more enabled to have virtual debates about controversial topics. And this exhibit tries to solve that as an experiment. So you have like a little station with two parts. The first part is just a little microphone where you can speak in, and then your voice will be transcripted automatically. And then in the background, your statement will be analyzed by AI. So, for example, the system asks you, what are the problems in your neighborhood? And then you can answer, and then the system analyzes your answer, and you can then, in the second part, scroll through the answers and the ideas of the other visitors. And we really try to find out how can we make good digital debates. And we haven't the solution yet because the exhibit just opened last week. But it's an ongoing process, and we need workshops and further development really to redefine this object in the exhibit and really find out how to use this technology for this purpose to enhance and to enable digital debate and democracy. Yeah, and the last examples are our future boxes. This is our education product, and we built them totally open source as an open educational resource. This is like how the print product is looking like, but it's a hybrid thing. So you have like these cards that you can use in your school for like team interaction, which is important because good discussion and good learning all still works best in the analog world. But like all the other things are in the digital realm. So all the printout materials, tutorials, stuff like that are all digital. So it's a hybrid thing. And yeah, we really try to teach this 21st century skills to enable students to think creatively, to have imagination, make their own projects, be active. Yeah, this is something where you have not so much practice in school. And therefore, it's important to have like a huge set of digital support for teachers, for students, to really give the methods to them, which would be impossible in a purely analog product. So digital helps us out to get like the quality. And after Corona, there was like a huge boom in the digital skills in schools. So that's right now, it's like the right time to build good open education products and really not just do education work at your institutions, but also enable teachers to do awesome stuff by their own in their schools. And the other thing that is the beauty of open education resources is that every other institution, so if you are interested, go for it, can take our future boxes and hack and redesign them and make different versions of them, because we say, no, we don't want to control it anymore. We want to enable other institutions to use these materials and make their own of it. And so we have a couple of future boxes that we haven't made, that are made by other institutions. By, for example, the last one is one about the future of the oceans, which is a really lovely one. And they took
last minute, David.
Yeah, that's good. They took our advice and then built their own education product. And just to give you an impression how this box works, it's really about enable people to work creatively. So they use these boxes to have meaningful discussions about the future, and then in the end, building prototypes, how they imagine like future products. And I'm sorry, I ate a Hanuta because my blood sugar was so low, and now I'm stuck with it. So just some expressions how like this creative workshop thing is happening at Futurium. And with that, I say thank you for your time, and I'm happy for your questions in the chat.
Thank you, David. And please don't choke on a Hanuta during a live webinar. Don't do it also not on a live webinar. Thank you so much for your presentation. We also already have the first inspired vision proposal from Tamara Kirsch, who says it would be cool to recreate Niki de Saint-Phal's tarot garden, or certain characters of it with Lego would fit with Futurium. So just in case you have some more space for a new project, there you go. Yeah, I also really applaud all the open source solutions. It's so cool to finally, you know, I think cultural institutions in the past have been a bit drawn too much into this idea of concurrence, and now having this open source sharing moment is so important. So thank you very much for that. There's also, I think it's where open source is in opposition to commodity, because Lily said, what did you mean by the term of commodity? I think you said it quite at the beginning, you know, instead of making a commodity, you go into open source solutions. I think that's how I understood it, but I don't know if that's correct.
He said a shareable commodity. I thought that was very interesting.
David, do you want to come back to that?
Yeah, I think that's the important part. And I saw in the chat, there's like this question about how can I do that with little resources? And that's like the basic design goal behind that. How can I use simple hardware, already free existing software to build awesome installations? And how can we work as a cultural community together to build like this building blocks to get out of this, I need 20 grants to do like the minimal viable project for an exhibit. Exhibitions are so expensive, and one reason is that we haven't built like an open source infrastructure to help each other and to have like the building blocks to do interactive exhibits. And if every institution would do it open source, then the next project wouldn't be that expensive, because you can start at 90% and not at 10, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for that work, and thank you so much also for this lovely presentation full of ideas and visions. Yeah, thanks a lot. We will now move on to our next project, which takes us to the Center of Contemporary Culture in Barcelona. And dear David, could you stop your screen share? That would be helpful. Thank you so much. All good. Right, so I'm really happy to welcome Carlotta Broggi and Luis Narreta to present their upcoming exhibition, Artificial Intelligence. And just for context, Carlotta is an art historian, curator, and head of touring exhibitions at the CCCB. And Luis is a researcher at the intersection of music, art, technology, and science, and currently the local curator of said Artificial Intelligence exhibition that was initially developed by the Barbican, but is now being recreated for the CCCB. So super happy to learn everything about it. Thank you, Carlotta and Luis.
Thank you very much, Barbara, for this presentation, and thanks to ZKMA, Livia, Felix, and all the team for organizing such an interesting event. So far, we have learned a lot. So, in our presentation, Luis and I will explain how the CCB addressed the issue of digital interfaces. And in order to do so, we will make a sort of a little bit of history, no? We firstly I will explain the institutional approach. Then I will explain a little bit how we understand what is an exhibition. And finally, we will sort of make a travel from the past of exhibition to the one on artificial intelligence that Luis is preparing nowadays. So I will begin. The CCB is not a museum of art, design, or science. It is devoted to what our society understands by contemporary culture. We do not own a collection, and our main focus is the production and transmission of knowledge. To try to define very quickly the singularity of the CCB approach to the exhibitions, I will underline three main characteristics. Firstly, we understand our shows as thought exhibition, to use a terminology by Latour and Peter Weibel, simulators of thought experience in which juxtaposition and links between exhibits make knowledge contemplated and not only reasoned. Secondly, we work on the borders between disciplines, and as a result, the CCB exhibition often present a mixture of artifacts that are traditionally exhibited separately. This means that we often incorporate peripheral exhibits that break down the classification between what is an artwork, what is a scientific object, or a cultural artifact. Very often in our exhibition space, we find contradiction that emerge between the hierarchy of historical artworks and those that, according to the canon, do not deserve to be aesthetically or ontologically isolated. And thirdly, we understand the exhibition as a performative space. No? The interaction with the visitor modulates the exhibition discourse, since there is necessarily a tension between the coding and the decoding of the message. This is super important, I think, because it's also important when we talk about the digital dispositive that we integrate in our show. So the key elements in this debate about how we fit the digital elements in the CCB is the beta programming line that we dedicate to the intersection between art, technology, and culture. It was created in 2040, and since then we have presented a dozen of proposals. So Big Bang Data was the first one of this line of exhibition and analyzes the explosion of data and its impact on the society and our vision of the world. So in this project, in all these projects, that we have faced several challenges that links with the nature and the origin of the digital device in an exhibition space. So the exhibition, Big Bang Data, began with a quote that I like very much about Lev Manovich, where he reminded us that the new media are dealing with new ways of accessing and manipulating information, with one main characteristic, the use of computer as a tool that stores, produces, and analyzes data. This technology does not imply necessarily a new formal proposal, but a new way of organizing narrative. I think that this is important, no? Afterwards, when we will discuss the digital device in a museum. So the digital devices includes in the show where basically artifacts, installations, and artworks that use data as a raw material to shape the world. Devices that allowed the flow of the present, as Groys would say, to be exhibited and contemplated inside the museum's room. So the first challenge, for me is very important challenge, is what is the coexistence with the other devices. If all the devices of the show are based on the data obtained in the real time from the space outside the museum, what separates the inside and the outside the exhibition, the daily object from the museum exhibit? As Manovich reminds us, as soon as we can produce different versions of the same exhibit, the link between the object and the material is broken, and we no longer show a device for its physical characteristic linked to representation capacity, but as a program. So in this slide, we see two different data processors that were shown in Big Bang Data. One is the Duo Fertility, that is a marketed product, an interface standard for personal use, not for display, of course. The visitor sees the device exhibited, but cannot manipulate it. The information comes from the extended label. On the contrary, the Telepresent Water is an immersive installation conceived by David Bowen. It reacts to a scientific data processor located in the Atlantic Ocean and reproduces the movement of waves. So the challenge here was to create the necessary context and narrative in the exhibition in which both distant devices could coexist in the same space. The second challenge in Big Bang Data was on the classification of the devices. For example, here we see two data visualization, flying patterns and wind map, which are considered media art classic, no, that are currently exhibited in MoMA, and also the ThinkFull map that is created by a creative technology company. So all of them are proposals developed by creators with a technological and background that use a very expressive and aesthetic data representation. Should they be considered works of art? For the CCB public and for the CCB, this question and answer is not important because we are focused on contemporary culture, not on art. But as Sarah Cook points out, in some museums, this kind of media art have sometimes some difficulties of being exhibited because they have not followed the usual steps marked for the canonical system of art. Another challenge here is, here is in 2019, we present an exhibition gameplay, a ZKM project, which was reimagined by the CCB. It analyzes the language of video games and highlighted the impact they have on society, culture, art, and education. In this case, here we had another very important challenge for this sort of devices, that is the interactivity. So is a purely interactive exhibition possible? It means a project in which each and every device requires the visitor's participation is possible. The original version of the ZKM was made up of 30 playable and interactive video games. And this was a radical gesture because the visitor was asked to devote a lot of time and have special skills. Nevertheless, at the CCB, we have a very diverse audience, and it's is not necessarily familiar with the digital interfaces. So we decided to add some projections and visualization of the programs. The aim was to make visible and understandable the interactive action, means the non-linear narrative proposed by video games, the poetics of the rules and the culture of this decision that exists behind them. So now Luis will explain the other challenge that presents us this adaptation of the Barbican shows on artificial intelligence.
Now you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Computer magic.
Sorry about that. So very quickly. So now we are preparing that show about artificial intelligence that we are opening that in October. So we are still working. And there are plenty of things, but the main challenge here is that we need to exhibit a lot of computer processes, a lot of computer processing, a lot of things that happens inside the computer. So we have a problem with the interface. And there is a part of the show, the show will have 5 chapters. One of them will be happening completely in the metaverse. So that there will be a show, a room in the show that will be meant just to access the metaverse. But we thought with Carlota that there are already very good examples of that in this webinar. So we will focus on a physical exhibition that has a strong digital aspect. If you can move to the next slide, Carlota. I will describe in 1 minute that piece, and that will be it. So that's a piece. Sorry that we have now. It's of course a recreation because the installation it's not done yet. That's a piece called Piano Plus AI. That's basically a pianist, Marco Mezquida, it's a fantastic pianist, playing with an AI system, and they play a duo. So a few times in the show, we will have the performance, and this is more straightforward. You have the pianist playing and the AI system interacting. But the difficult challenge is what will we show in the installation between the performances? So how do we show this process as an installation when the pianist is not there? And the idea, we are trying on a strategy that it's about opening the interface. It's about making the interface open and complex. And we do that in contrast with the strategy that we do in the immersive part of the show. We could say that with the immersive technologies, often what we do is we try an interface that is coherent and it's the same thing and tries to take you, as fiction does, to another place and another time. So in this case, we try the opposite direction, that you are present in the space, but you have a rich enough idea of things that are happening in the machine and online. So we will have the piano, we will have some chairs, so people are invited to listening. We will have the computer, we will have the speakers that are using the performance, and in those speakers, people will be listening to recordings of the performances. And then in the screens, we'll have the code in Max MSP, that's the language that is used. That's very important. We will share the code. That will be an open source show. And this is very important, even if you don't know how to read the code. That's an invitation to get closer to how the machine works. And it's also an invitation to collective intelligence, because perhaps you don't know how to read the code, but you know someone who does. So it's the main thing is that you are part of an articulated collective where someone knows how to read the thing. And also we will have a visualization of how the AI system makes sense of what the pianist is doing. So that's a visualization, and that's not the code. So that's not the communication between the machine and the humans, but that's rather a visualization of how the machine is thinking, what's the machine doing. So the idea is that some of those things can later be online. We still need to decide exactly what part of the show will be online. Of course, you can have some sort of multi-layer display online, but in the physical space, that multi-layer interface, it's a key factor. That's what we wanted to stress. The concept that you are not in another place, as often is the case with VR, augmented reality, but you are here, and you have broken the interface. So you have different places, different times that you need to consider together to make sense of the installation, and then the installation plays with your comprehension, with your understanding, also with sensing, of course, because that's as sensitive as the performance, and with your imagination. So it's again a multi-layer experience, but in this case, in your brain, in the physical space. So that's very quickly what we wanted to explain about the show. Sorry about the technical problems. The mic was working perfect until I had to speak. So sorry about that, and very curious to share the conversation with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luis, and no worries at all. It's always the same, and that worked beautifully. And you finished it off with such a poetic definition of what hybridity and hybrid means. So yeah, thank you very, very much. And also to you, Carlota. I would actually be super, super curious to know more about also the metaverse part and you know, the online bit of the exhibition. And maybe this is something that you can take into the breakout session and share a bit more about.
Yes, for sure. It's not that different. I said that as if it was a contrast, but it's not that different. So it would be nice to share it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and also it's interesting to be at the moment right now where you are thinking what to put online and what to have, you know, in the physical realm. So I really like this hybrid notion of the project. So thanks so much for sharing it with us. From the middle of the process of it. And yeah, I think we will just move on to the last presentation with that. We are now going to kind of close the circle back to the beginning, because in the beginning we started with the immaterial display that is currently on show at the ZKM. And another project on show in the Matte non-Matte exhibition is by Fabrik. And from Fabrik, we have Patrick Keller here, who is professor at the ECAL University of Arts and Design in Lausanne. And he is the co-founder and director of Fabrik. Very briefly, you will explain it with more detail, of course. Fabrik is a studio for architecture, interaction, and research, and you have realized numerous digital and hybrid projects. So I'm really, really excited to dive into your expertise, and thank you so much for being with us and closing this first part of the webinar off for us. Take it away.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm not a director, by the way. There are no director, or just colleagues.
Sorry.
No problem. We work together, so that's all. So I'm just going to share my screen. And so indeed, I'm going to focus on one work in my presentation, mainly one work, which is the one that is presented currently at ZKM. It is entitled Atomized Restaging. And it is really about, I mean, what is exhibited is really, you can really see the process of creating a digital or hybrid exhibition. And really, you see the process evolve until it reach a kind of result. And then this result, you can experience it in a different way, for example, on a mobile device, on a cell phone, a tablet, whatever. So you really have those both aspects to the project, and you can really see, I mean, you really have kind of maybe, I would say, one new exhibition per day, something like this, or sometimes more. It depends on the complexity of the project and the number of artworks you want to show. So at ZKM, it's approximately one new show per day. So the interesting part, of course, is that it's evolving, it's changing, and you can experience different exhibition from the same type of content. But I would like first to give a little context to this, because this is not the only type of work we're doing. So Fabric CH is really a collective of architects and computer scientists, as you said. And we are interested since our beginning. We are very interested into, how our relation to space has evolved thanks or through digital technologies, how this has transformed our relation to space and through space to other beings. And we've been through, really, I would say, experimental architecture project. And what you can see here is a kind of impression of the different type of works we're doing. And there are many installations, in fact. So we are doing kind of devices that we are presenting mostly in museums. So our practice has brought us very close to museums, in fact, because that's where we present our work. And some of the works might look a little bit more like traditional architecture, like here on the image, you have it on the bottom left of the screen. This is a building somehow. It has never been built. It's really paper architecture. Or at the other extent, it could be also only a screen. At some time, it's really a screen project, and we present our work that way. So very, this kind of experiments that go in several directions. And through the years, we really went through kind of nature of this digital space and how it has changed, how really the digital has changed space, and how we can possibly build different architecture, different spaces for this changed nature of digital space. And among these different projects, we had the chance also to work on several exhibition projects, some digital exhibitions, some hybrid exhibitions. So here you have some images coming from different projects. From on the left, for example, you have a work we did for the Namjoon Art Center in South Korea. On the top is a pretty old project, an hybrid museum we did for the Museum of Modern Contemporary Art in Geneva. That was in 2005. And it was really a combination between a digital environment and installation within the museum with which you would have interaction between the two environments. And in some cases also we produced the work of other artists. For example, here you just see an image of an artist that is Heimo Zobernig, who worked a lot with the space of the museum. On the bottom left, you have a project we did for the Haus der Elektronischen Künste in Basel. And in this case, we used the same type of tools that we are currently using in the ZKM, but in this context, it was really to produce the physical exhibition. So we really had our tool, instruction, artworks, and the tool helped us define the physical counterpart of the exhibition, and in the end, give us instruction on how to put the pieces in the space, where to put partitions, how to paint the wall, and so on. So we used these instructions, not entirely. We picked up the ones we liked somehow, but the same, I would say, the same background helped us either build a physical exhibition or a digital one, like it is the case at the ZKM. So the image with the color, the green and the blue color. This is an image taken from what we are showing currently at the ZKM with artworks that are coming from the research project, from the Beyond Matter research project. So we have 200 artworks that were already digitized by the research that we are using, and we are using them in a slightly different way that was presented by Livia during the first presentation of the afternoon. So this is a little bit for the very general context of what we're doing with Fabric. And I was speaking about this nature of space. Somehow it's not only the tools that are allowing us to do something different in architecture, for example, but really the kind of space we're living in is changed, is mediatized. So this is a pretty old also project where we thought, well, if the nature of space has changed, then probably the way we occupy this space or the way we assemble function within this space might change as well. We are used to live in, all kind of functional spaces that are an inheritance of the modern period somehow. If you have a different nature of space, maybe the functions, the occupation will change. So we started to explore this by exploding somehow, atomizing the function of a building. So this was really for a real building, a competition, an architectural competition. And what you see in gray is that we started by separating the elements of the program, but really going back to tiny elements, really functional elements like a table, a seating, a resting area, and really exploding everything into elements. And what you see on the bottom of the image where you have those colors and you can see a little bit, it's a little bit tiny, but you can see those elements there, is the regular organization of a program for this building. So with the different color, you have the different functions. For example, you have the cafeteria that is in one color, the offices is in another color, the public spaces again in another color. So you organize and you segment the space in that way. And using our exploded elements, our discretized element, we reorganized this function according to different rules. So it's a little bit what you see on the upper right corner of the image. It's when we apply different rules or different, almost a different program to reorganize the functions. For instance, here it's organized around climatic temperature. Some functions need to be in the hot temperature, some other functions in the cold. And if you reshuffle all the color that you have on the bottom of the screen, following these rules, then you will have a totally different organization and occupation of space. And of course, I mean, this was something we did by hand at the time, but we had behind this project a kind of algorithmic rule that we could possibly implement and start really automatized in some way. Really use this principle to explore different conditions, different spaces. And that's what we did for architecture at first, but that's what also we did for the project we had related to digital exhibition, hybrid exhibition, and so on. So what you see here is, again, it's a kind of exploded program into elements. So on the left, you have, I would say, the artworks that are part of the whole Beyond Matter project. So these are mostly, as I can see, the Iconoclash exhibition models, but there are also the models from Les Immatériaux in this data set. So we have a very flat data set of elements. On the right, there are other elements that could be partitions, flooring, colorful walls, etc., etc. And they are separated in the same way that the functions or the occupation of space were separated before in the architectural example I gave you. So the idea behind that is to find the new rules that we will give to what we've programmed in between our system that will reorganize this thing together. So I'm coming back to this project that is presented at ZKM, Atomized Restaging. And I have a short video that it's 2 minutes and a half that I can show you. So it's silent, don't worry if you don't have sound, but that will present a little bit how the things is working and how you can experience it in the end. So just let me start this and You will let me know if it's working well.
Looking good for now. Yeah, perfect.
So I think you got the idea about the overall project, how things are assembled in a dynamic way according to rules. So what you see when the things is getting constructed is really that somehow the software or the tools are building their data set. So because depending on the rules you give to the algorithms, they have to train a lot of times the data set to reach a result. I mean, each things that you see, for example, for the case of the ZKM, we ask that all the artworks must be present in the result. So this is the moment where it will consider is exhibition finished somehow, but you can of course give a different condition. And this takes some time to really train the model, and then within this training, start to search about what piece goes where and so on and so on. And this what takes quite long finally to reach the final result. So you really have those training sets that you can observe within the exhibition and follow, really follow on the screens. And then you can experience them either on your cell phone or on a tablet and really walk through the exhibition to visit the artworks. So within this project, we really kept this relation. I mean, I would say the spatial relation, the size relation, and the volume relation to the artwork. So you definitely have to walk through the whole model to make the visit. And somehow, because you are not in the same space, of course, as the digital exhibition, you are in a physical location that doesn't look exactly the same, or is maybe smaller or bigger. You have to find a way to visit the space, or maybe go in another space to continue the visit. You have to climb the stairs of a building to change level, etc., etc. So we said it's a kind of derive somehow, because you are moving in a digital space from a physical location, and both experience are a little bit strange to one another, but that's also what makes you discover the physical space in a different way and also the digital space in a different way. So this relation was quite important to us within this project. Also, I would finish a little bit like this, but really the importance also of the rules is that you can really sort of customize them and define also maybe some relation between the artworks. So really in this project, the artworks are really building the space around them and then complete it with partitions, flooring, etc., etc. So it's really the artworks that build the environment. But then as you have you can have some static rules or dynamic rules, you can really change the result depending, for example, on the location where it is accessed from, or on the time of the day. Maybe it's not the same exhibition in the morning or in the afternoon. And of course, the person, the visitor, the online visitor can have also a kind of choice on the result. And in the end, it builds some kind of building. The resulting exhibition is some sort of building, unless it's only the inside of the building that you have, and of course not the envelope of this building. And finally, I come back to the exhibition space itself, where we have those 3 screens at the end of the exhibition space here.
It's your last minute, sorry.
Yeah, it's my last slide. So really to ask the question of the presence also of this project within a museum. So do you need to access it from inside the museum? Do you access it from outside? Do you see the process, not the process? There are many options and many, I would say, open questions also to this kind of project when you present them inside a museum space. And that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks, Patrick. There's actually one quick question in the chat. Have you used a 3D scanning tool, and which one?
If we scan the models, I didn't get the.
So I think the question came when you really showed the last project with all the elements of the space. Yes. And of the exhibition. So I think that's what the question was referring to.
No, so in this case, there is really no scanning of neither artworks, neither the space, but like many of the digital project we've seen, there are some customization, of course, that are possible. So you can decide at one point that you are using the information from the space you are in, because it's the same technology when you move around with your tablet, for example. This is AR technology, unless we just don't show the video here in the background. But we could have this information from the space you are moving in, and then also adapt the results to this somehow. It's really, well, pretty open how you would really display, in fact, the results.
Yeah, amazing, super nice. So thank you very, very much for sharing so many details also about that one. And I think we will go into breakout sessions now, because this will be just a wonderful opportunity to dive in even deeper into the wonderful projects that we had the pleasure of discovering. So yeah, we got a lot of thanks already in the chat. That's so nice. Everybody is as thrilled as I am, which is really cool. Right, so let's take a deep breath. We will now go into discussions. Have a good discussion. Yeah, enjoy.